Today we're gonna go over topics from your fourth tutorial in Unit 1, Similarity and Transformations. I was planning on going on instructions on how to do assignment 2 in Unit 2, but I think we'll do a separate video about it, so we can focus on doing some notes for this tutorial. And also Khan Academy activities. Please, if you haven't already, make your Khan Academy account. Make sure that you link the math department to your account so we can assign you the activities. This is just a little summary of what the first activity is about. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 videos and 3 practices that you have to turn in. This is what you will be graded on, the practices, and this is just a little summary. Okay, so let's begin. Unit 1, tutorial, similarity and transformations. For today is to define and identify what a similar shape is. We're also going to go over how to map two different shapes by doing one or more transformation. And this is the key here, one or more transformation. To be able to understand this tutorial, you need to already be somewhat familiar with reflections, rotations, translations, and dilations. So those are the 4 main types of transformations. If you need a little review on how to do that, I strongly suggest to start the Khan Academy activity and watch the videos. Those instructional videos are very useful and very short, very concise. If you want to see a visual, there's this cool app called GeoGebra. Show you really quick. And it has pretty much like a summary of what each one does. A reflection of the pre-image, which is the original one, and then the reflection of this one. And this is the line of the reflection, or the mirror, I like to call it. So this is reflected over here. A rotation, a shape just turns around or spins around a shape depending on how many degrees you make it spin. What a rotation is, a translation is just moving shape to another side. So we're here, I want to move it this way, and then maybe 4 units up, and maybe 3 units up. The 3 main types of transformations: reflection, rotation, translation. Translation is a transformation when you have one shape, the same shape, but the size is different. If you need further review, please start the Khan Academy activities on this, or just contact one of the math teachers and we'll be happy to go over these topics with you. As far as the tutorial, I'm going to start giving you some tips on note-taking. I'm going to go over maybe a couple pages, important pages in the tutorial. So what I'm going to do, I keep this whiteboard here. These are going to be my notes. And for this class, I strongly suggest to have a notebook where you can write your own notes, or have a different system to write notes, because it is going to be very difficult for you to memorize everything here, and it's easier to just write it down so you can reference it later. Okay, so let's start the tutorial. One is usually the introduction. 2, it's the title. Objective, this is what tells you what you're going to learn in this class. You're going to learn that 2 shapes are congruent, and you're going to do a sequence of rotations, reflections, or translations. More introduction. Then page 5 just starts with a small summary of a single transformation. And they introduce the word congruent. Congruent shape is two shapes are congruent if they have the same size and shape. Saying, oh, this shape is the same as this one, I'm not going to use that word. They're going to use the word congruent. This is an important piece of vocabulary to remember. So what I would do, I would write it in your notebook. Begin with those notes. Type here. Congruent if they have the same size and shape. Two images are congruent if they have the same size and shape. Go back and type this again. And underline the word congruent. Okay, and this is just for you to get familiar with the vocabulary. Okay, so that's enough of that. Page 6. Congruent objects in the real world may point in different directions. Sometimes a reflection across a line will not show that the two shapes are congruent. Consider a pair of skis pointing in different directions. We can rotate one ski by a certain angle about a point so that it overlaps ski. So the pair of skis illustrate congruent shapes. Sorry. So in this tutorial, this page, they're just giving you a description. This is just for you to read and understand. I do not recommend writing all this paragraph down in your notes because the point of having notes is for you to be able to retrieve information in an easier, faster, and more organized manner. So there's no need to write anything here, anything from here, because it's not very useful. It's good to read it and try to understand the explanation. But really, when it comes to notes, you want to focus on specific examples. So congruent shapes. And you have a description of congruent shapes in the real world. These two triangles are congruent because they're essentially the same shape. They're the same shape and the same size. Only one is upside down and the other one is standing up, but essentially they are the same shape, so we say that they are congruent. Since I already wrote something to deal with congruence in my notes, I'm gonna rewrite this. 7. Okay, now this lesson activity is something that I would like you to focus on. To make sure that you all understand that lesson activities inside the tutorial are not graded. But please try to spend some time on these because these activities are very similar to what you're going to see on the mastery test and might be the only time when they actually show you. So today I'm going to go over a couple pages that have activities and kind of give you an idea of how to go about this. I do want you to go over this, but I also don't want you to spend too much time on this page. So how can we effectively go over these topics and make the best of our use of our time? Okay, so let's lesson activity, congruent shapes. This activity, you will apply transformations on a shape to try mapping it onto the other shapes. Then you will interpret your mapping and identify which shapes are congruent to the shape you started with and which are not. Okay, mapping. This is another word that comes up a lot. An example of mapping would be, oh, like right here. I have two different shapes. I have this blue one and this orange one. If I want to map the orange onto the blue one, I'm going to do a translation. Mapping is just that you take it back to where it started. Right here, I'm going to map it back. So that's all it means. Use the graph and the shapes shown to complete the task in this activity. Down. And I am going to read this question. Part A. Is there a transformation that maps shape 1 onto shape 2? Okay, let's take a look at our shapes. have one, which is this one, and shape 2. Now, what this is asking you, is there anything I can do? Any of these transformations, reflection, rotation, translation, so I can map this shape to this one. In this other example that we did with the orange the orange square that was mapped back to the original, what can I do to this green one? I can go back here. Okay, so that's one thing to keep in mind. All right, so the first one is horizontal, is sideways, and the other one is facing up. Translation will not do this because it just moves it around, but it doesn't change the direction of the shape. Reflection doesn't always change the direction. So by intuition, you can say, well, it looks like it might be a rotation. Let's say you're not sure and you're like, you know what, I don't want to spend too much on this. I'm just guess. Always try your best guess. And click on submit. The cool thing about these activities is that after you submit, you can check your answer. You can check if you right idea. And it says, yes, there is a transformation that maps shape 1 onto shape 2, rotating shape 90 degrees clockwise about the origin, maps it to shape 2. Okay, perfect. Now, the only problem about these activities in the tutorial is that you cannot have them open as you're taking the mastery test. So I strongly suggest to copy these down. And if you're doing electronic notes, you can do it in Google Docs or even this whiteboard. I can give you the link to this. You can take a screenshot of the picture and your answer to question 1, and then you can write it in your notes. It's my notebook right here. I'm gonna rotation, and if I want to just double check which is the page, which is the transformation that I did, I'm just gonna make sure that I circle them or have a way to know which shapes you're talking about. And then make some other observation notes. Well, a rotation will shape the direction of the shape. And shape. The direction, or the word that they use in the tutorial, is orientation. Perfect. So let's go on to question 2, and maybe also I'll keep shape in case I want a different one. If you need help taking a screenshot, please let a teacher know. The way that you take a screenshot might be different depending on the computer you're using. Okay, now let's look at this one. Is there a transformation that maps shape 1 to shape 3? Okay, so now they're changing it up. So in my notes, I'm gonna bring back this whiteboard, this image. And this question 2. Is there a transformation that maps shape 1 onto shape 3? So basically you start with shape 1 and somehow you have to end up with shape 3. So you go from here to here somehow. I'm gonna do some notes. I'm gonna write down what I observe. I observe that shape doesn't change orientation. Whoops. Orientation. That means it keeps facing the same way. So it's probably not a rotation. It looks like it was just moved down here. Reflection could be a good guess. Maybe a translation. Again, if you're not entirely sure, you can type it. Let's say I guessed that it was a reflection. It's not gonna be a reflection. If you're not sure, I don't want you to spend too much time on this. Just try your best and check. In this case, it says no, there isn't a transformation that maps shape 1 onto shape 3. Okay, so this is where you'll be like, wait a minute. I could probably move this around and place it here. So let's see what the rest says. Translating the shape 7 units right and 7 units down will map only one of its sides to onto shape 3. The rest of its sides do not match up with the sides of the shape because shape 3 and shape 3 is horizontally wider than shape 1. And this is the tricky thing. If you look at these, they look like they are the same shape. They look like they're congruent, but they're actually not. So just make sure that you keep an eye to the small detail. One way that you can tell is, well, on the bottom, the distance is 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see if it matches this bottom. 1, oops, 2, 3, 4, and a little bit more, like maybe like 4.5. So they're actually not the same shape. Not congruent. So it doesn't matter what I do to shape 1 to try to match this one. It's not the same shape. In this case, we cannot find any transformation that will map to this one. And this, I would put like a little star here. Just to note, this is going to be important. Important. Keep in mind. Right. And again, the rest is the same. Is there a transformation that maps shape 1 into shape 4? This, try your best, type it, and make sure that you keep it in your notes. And I also recommend that at the top of your notes, page number that you found it in the tutorial, in case you need more information and you want to go to it. This was on page 7. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to the next part of the tutorial. 8. Then 8 is more information about what mapping the shape is and what other transformations you can do. 9. Ooh, question. This is another important one. Make sure that you try these as well, because these are also questions that you might be tested on, and these are the only practice problems that you can find in the tutorial. Try this one. Which shapes are congruent to shape 1 in this graph? Okay, so for now, I'm gonna zoom it in. See. Shape 1, which ones are the same? Some of them are just turned in a different way. This one looks kind of like this one. Not the same. They're not congruent. So 4, the one that's not the same. It's 1, 2, 3. 3 is completely different. 4, 5, 6. The rest look the same, just turned a different way. I'm gonna try this. Let's see what it says. Oh, incorrect. Try again. You can always try again. Let's say you're not entirely sure. Like, well, again. And then it'll show you the correct answer. Shape 2. Oh, this was asking you which ones are congruent, which ones are the same. Okay, and then again, I would take a screenshot of this and put it in my notes, or find a way to write it down. Put it here. This was on page 9. And then for the sake of time, I'm going to move on to the next topic that's going to be important in this mastery test, or like this section. Sequences of transformation. In this case, you're not just going to do one transformation. You're going to do more than one transformation. I mean, let's say that I want to figure out how to get this shape to look like that. Maybe one rotation is not going to be enough. Maybe you have to do a reflection and a rotation, or 2 reflections. This is what the main topic of this tutorial is about. Again, for your notes, read this. This is a review from the previous tutorials. Then if you see a video of any that is a little bit over a minute, usually indicates that they will do a worked out example. So make sure that you take special attention to pay special attention to these videos. 13, more information to focus on, and then I'm gonna do this activity, not all of it, but I'm gonna go over the first one. Okay, now you have these 2 shapes. Can you map shape 1 onto shape 2 by a sequence of transformations? More than one transformation. And let's say let's say I have a hard time what the transformations are. Always have your your notes from your other tutorials open, or some sort of a guide. Translation. Okay, translation, you just move it. Okay, looks like it was not moved. Rotation, could be a rotation. Oh, it's almost like or it could be a reflection. This reflects onto this, or if the line looked like this would reflect over to this. Okay, so it looks like it was only one rotation and not more than one. So I'm gonna guess rotation. Submit, and it says it is possible one sequence of reflecting across the x-axis and rotating and translating. Oh wow, so they did 3 at a time. Again, make sure that I have the page number here. Just write down the answer in my notes. And let's see what they did. One sequence involves reflecting. Copy that and paste it here. Copy. Reflecting shape 1. I'm gonna do it like in order. This is 1. And then the origin. Second one, and then they actually did 3 things to this one. 3 things were done. Notice how this says one sequence. And the only way to get this shape to make it look like this one. This is not the only way to shape this onto that. It's just one option. You could have another sequence where there's only 2 transformations. And this, please make sure that you pay special attention to this as well. And then if you're not entirely sure, like, oh, you know what? I forgot what this means. What is a rotation? What is a counterclockwise rotation? What is this origin? What is this? What are these degrees? Contact a math teacher. Will be happy to work with you, do a quick review session, or go back to your notes or the Khan Academy videos. They might be able to clear all the questions that you have. So same thing, try this question out, try your best. Make sure that you write down important things. Continue on with the tutorial. Make sure that you don't write paragraphs in your notes. You want to make sure that you can get all the information as fast as you can and as simple as you can. So focus on maybe a couple of vocabulary words and lots of examples. Thing. This is a worked out example. If writing this helps you, please do. It's different examples here. Page 16, 17. More explanation, but nothing for you to kind of try out. And question 18, same thing. Make sure that you try activity, and they give you a list of transformations. Submit, and then you can check if your answer was correct. If after doing all of this and taking notes, you still don't quite understand the topics, again, please let us know. We'll be more than happy to help you out. Okay, that is it for today. We'll let you know when our next live WebEx meeting is so you can get some extra credit. Students who attended this session will get extra credit on this mastery test. So make sure that you tune in for the next one. Okay, that's it for today. This is Mrs. Gajanis, and I'll forward to working with you later on. If you have questions, please let me know.